Hello, everyone, or should I say shalom, right? That's what you say around here. My name is Daniel Matros. I am a producer at Dייס, currently working on Battlefield 4. And just a few things before I start. I heard there are drinks afterwards, and I'm quite the raging drinker. So I'll be joining you for drinks, so we can have a good Q&A after that. I swear a lot too, so I hope people don't take offense. If that's okay. And I am the world's, I probably have an international reputation of being really shitty with PowerPoints. Like my PowerPoints look really bad, so you'll find out. I have some fancy videos with me though, so that kind of helps. What is there to say? I'm Daniel. I'm 26 years old. I've been at Dייס for 3 years, working on BC2. My first console title, Backcountry to Vietnam expansion pack, launched last Medal of Honor, not this one. That was Danger Close. We did the last one, of course. Battlefield 3, my biggest project so far, my most tiring and ambitious project so far, together with the rest of the team. And but the winnings from that has been amazing. It's 17 million copies sold across all platforms. So those are pretty big numbers, but we had to start from somewhere, you know. We just didn't walk into Battlefield and E3 and win everything. We started from somewhere. And let me just take you back to where we came from. That's 20 years of excellence. I love that tagline. It's amazing. When you work in the studio, you don't really see it as excellence. You see it as current playtests going on and everything breaking. But that's in the studio, which I'm not really allowed to say, but I just did. So this is not In Sync. That's Marcus Carquist from 1992. In traditional 90s outfits as well. These are the guys who founded Dייס back in the days. They studied at a university. These just 4 dudes built a pinball game on their Amiga. And they came from the Swedish and the German demo scene. Do you guys know about the demo scene in Germany? Yeah, of course. Amiga, Commodore 64s, and all that kind of stuff. So they started from there. And it was an idea in Sweden that started growing and growing and growing. And that was the only game studio that was serious about it at the time. And they only made the games just because they wanted to make games. It was actually a university project to make it. Before I even go further, I have to extend a huge thank you to Game Israel and Guy Ulmer for inviting me to speak here and meeting everyone. Also, thank you to I am really bad with names, I'm so sorry, with the 2 dudes who spoke before me. I'm really bad with names. I'll buy you beers later. Thank you very much. It was very, very nice. I love your joke about the leper colony, by the way. It is. That was really cool. Also, my boss asked me to come here today. He was actually supposed to come, Carl Magnus Thorwaldsson, our vice president. He has kids, so he couldn't come. So he sent me instead. And he told me that, no, it's just going to be a small gig. You don't have to prepare for anything. It's like, all right. So I was expecting like 30 people. And wasn't really a small gig. So I actually have to take a picture of you guys just to show him that this was a pretty big gig. Yeah, I should get a raise. We'll record a video later where you say that. Let's see here. Let's grab a good picture. Ah, that's a good one. Yeah, I'll walk outside and grab some more pictures. But yeah, so the whole thing I'm coming at here is I didn't expect so many people. So thank you all for coming today. It's truly amazing standing in front of so many people and talk about something that we've been working on for quite some time and we're reaping the fruits from. So coming back to this, Dייס was founded 20 years ago, and today we've sold over 50 million copies of all our games, but it had to come from somewhere. So, but before we get to that, I have to tell you that we have the best studio in Stockholm, overviewing the city. It's amazing. Green Studio, you remember Ghost Recon? Yeah, they used to sit somewhere over on the other side. I think that's a shoe store now or something, maybe a coffee shop. It's something though, but they're not around. But the game development scene in Stockholm is practically being run by Dייس. And then you have Mojang and other studios that are doing their best. Paradox are doing great stuff, so everyone is coming up. But as in Israel, as I've heard, the biggest startups are apps. They're app-based. iPads, iPhones, and that kind of stuff. And I think that's where the traditional market for AAA titles, such as Battlefield, Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, all those big, clunky AAA titles will have to adapt to the fast, rapid response that the iPads and iPhones are giving, and all you developers are developing those kinds of apps. I think the traditional industry needs to think or rethink their business models and their strategy models and how they're going to venture into the future, because I think iPads and iPhones definitely are the future. Mobile gaming is on the rise. So back to Dייس. This was E3. Has everyone ever been to E3? It's pretty amazing. It's mind blowing. And when we went to E3 with Battlefield 3, we didn't really expect a lot of people to be, looking at it as they did. It was huge. It was a huge success. I think we won altogether 30 awards at E3, which no other game has done before, which is really, really cool. So I was at E3 this year again, and we saw Assassin's Creed raking up awards. We're like, oh my God, are they going to be more than 30? When they didn't, but they did a good job, though. They were really, really good. And we had cake because we turned 20. If you follow Dייس Twitter account, we don't always eat cake. Like that's something people think we do. We drink tea and eat cake all day and make games. We eat a lot of cake, which you're going to see later in the PowerPoint. But this is not all we do. But to take you back, this is today, but to take you back a bit, we had to have a winning idea. What's the winning idea behind Battlefield? Can you see the winning idea when you play Battlefield? Anyone? True, yeah, that's one of them. Any other winning idea? Yeah, someone said simulation, right? Yeah, so when we started with Battlefield back in the days, you had to have something that was unique. In the FPS market back in the days, you had Tribes, you had Counter-Strike 1.3, you had Quake 3, you had Quake 1, 2, all those traditional FPS arena games. You also had flight simulations, you had car simulations, you had any type of simulation you could want, submarine simulations. We wanted all of that in one game, and everyone could do everything at the same time. It sounded crazy, depending on the resources. It sounded crazy what kind of engine we were working with. And I'm going to give you a bit of insights as to how crazy it was. The E3 trailer that came out during 2000, everyone thought that the ships were moving. 4 hours before we were supposed to go and show the trailer at E3, we didn't have a trailer. So we had to make one. And when we made one, we found out that, oh my God, our boats are not moving. How are we going to record this trailer? So our animator decided, no, we'll just let the water move. So they just move the water, and it looks like the boat is moving. So those kinds of small tricks, And then For example, the airplanes. We were going to have big airplane battles in the trailer, and we found out very late before we released the trailer that, oh my God, our planes can't actually fly. They're just stuck in the air. So we had to keyframe and attach cameras to the planes. So making a trailer took like 2 days, whereas making a trailer actually takes a few hours today if you do it good, if you have your assets prepared and that kind of stuff. So yeah, the winning idea was to have everything in at the same time, something that no one had came out with before. That was easy back in the days. This was early 2000s, late 90s, and it was easy making a game that was contributed to by students in Sweden, because you had a lot of students in Sweden studying video games. It was not easy making a full game like this, like a AAA title. But I dare to say that a lot of the AAA titles today base their success on the games that came out before. If you want to open up a new IP today, I think one of the few IPs that has actually done a good job today is Dishonored, for instance. Has anyone played it? Yeah, it's a very good game for being a new IP, and it's a ballsy move to put out a new IP today in this day and age. So winning ideas, and Dice as a company was Dice, Pinball Games. That's what we knew. And there was another studio called Refraction Games that made a prototype called Codename Eagle. Has anyone heard of it? Oh, it's amazing. It was so amazing that no one plays it today. That's how amazing it is. Basically, Codename Eagle was the foundation for Battlefield 42. So this is a concept of an early soldier, by the way. It looks nothing like this in the game. But either way, DICE started working with Refraction Games, and this kind of could look like Battlefield 42, but it's Codename Eagle. The idea that Codename Eagle took to the table was, how can we create the massive online battle we want to create together with DICE to become the pinnacle of Swedish game development? So they started working, and it took them at least 2 years to develop a prototype. Codename Eagle was released, massively multiplayer online game for that time. And the funny thing is, they worked so hard in the studio. There was a fan who was a huge fan of this game. And when they patched the game, this Canadian fan was like, oh my God, this game is amazing. Where do you guys work? And they're like, we work at Medborgarplatsen in Stockholm. And I was like, oh, cool, I know this pizza store there. And Lars, who used to work on this, he was like, okay, well, that's cool. So they used to pull a lot of overtime hours. So all of a sudden, all these pizzas show up at their door from this guy who had ordered the pizzas from Sweden to Medborgarplatsen, which is just like a block away. So that's kind of how tight-knit the community was, and how much they actually thought the game was cool. So moving on from that came Battlefield 1942. This is our old DICE logo, by the way. You have the new one down there in the corner. This is a concept, very, very early, rough concept for Battlefield 42. It's in Swedish, so of course you can't read it. But basically, bridge goes bang, and tank goes there, and these people shoot at it. That's basically the mechanic we had. It wasn't about presenting a game to sell units. It wasn't about to ship 100,000 units. It was all about, how can we make something cool that no one has made before? And in today's gaming industry, if you want to release a AAA title, you can't go under 5 million sold copies. Otherwise, you're bankrupt. So that's the kind of pressure they didn't have back in the days. Let's take a look at this. that's an early game prototype. It looks like Codename Eagle, basically because it was based on Codename Eagle, based on the same engine and all that kind of stuff. And I remember they showed this to Tom, one of the vice presidents at EA, and he was like, this is good. EA will publish this. Now how can you make next game better? So, the pressure has always been on. Here you see a slide of the FPS market today, Unreal Tournament, Counter-Strike, Tribes, jetpacks flying around, Warbirds simulation, Sound Hunter, Submarine Sim. And our idea, this is our philosophy of how Battlefield was created. Basically, everything is a table where you just pick and roll, but everything can counter everything. And map design or map balance wasn't very important back in the days. The most important thing was a core feature for you as a player. How does a player interact with a plane that interacts with the environment? That was our way of building it. And we built the game from the weapon out or from the vehicle out. So we didn't build the map until we actually had a good runway for the tanks or for the planes and a good docking yard for the submarines and that kind of stuff. So we started very vehicle-centered and then moved into building a map. And I guess because you don't play a map, do you? I mean, you kind of play on a map, but you play a vehicle. The vehicle mechanics or the soldier mechanics or whatever kind of mechanics you have, they need to be 100% fit. Otherwise, you can have the most beautiful-looking map, but if your vehicle is really terribly shit, then no one's going to play it. So you always have to look at the core value of the game. And this is our final result, which was actually pretty cool.
Requesting a pickup. I need artillery fire. Artillery requesting a target. Roger that. I have a target for artillery. 警告する。お前は戦いから逃げようとしている。逃亡者は銃殺される。海軍の支援を要請する。上空援護機を要請する。護衛隊に標的を指示せよ。護衛隊向けの標的がある。Enemy ship spotted. Roger that. 敵地を攻撃せよ。突撃！離れるな！後ろ！万歳！爆発するぞ！ Enemy airplane spotted. Requesting air support. Requesting reinforcements. We can't hold them. The enemy is advancing. We're taking casualties. We can't hold them. We lost contact with the Outlaws reinforcements. Bail out! Medic!
Thank you. That was a long time ago, September 2002. I was still in high school. And this is what we released so far regarding Battlefield. And we have Mirror's Edge as well. I saw you guys hurrying for Mirror's Edge. You like it? Yeah, one of the most beautiful games. I don't know what you're talking about. And this is our cake. We celebrated 10 years on the Battlefield, and we had cake. It was really good. We're at least 300 people in the studio. It's difficult to imagine. We started out with 24 people. Now all those people are really old. They're like 40 years old now. And, I'm sorry. I just realized what I was saying. I don't listen to myself talk, that's why. Those people are mildly old. Is that better? They're not too old, but they're veterans. They know what they're talking about. So yeah, I can't get out of this, right? No. All right. So they're still around. Better? I still work there, all right? And I learn a lot from these people, so and so do the rest of us. It's been an amazing journey for Battlefield and for Dice, and let's just look forward to the future. I have time for questions, at least 3, right? 3 questions? Yes. Someone, shoot. Yes, you.
First, I want to thank you about the strategy you took with the expansion packs. Very good.
Thank you.
Question is, on Battlefield, Battlefield 2, you started going on campaign, single-player experience, and you kind of evolved in Battlefield 3. What are your plans for single-player campaigns in the next one?
Oh, I can't talk about Battlefield 4. We have a very angry PR crew. So, yeah, I really can't say.
What are your thoughts or personal thoughts from a company point of view on the single-player experience of Battlefield 2?
I think it was good. It was a good single player. It was a solid single player. And internally, we learned a lot from building a single player. I mean, you always learn a lot from building anything, really, but particularly from single player because it was our second wholehearted try. We had a single player in BC1 as well, but this was more wholehearted. And we weren't super satisfied. There were a lot of things that we could do better. And I guess we have to take that with us into the future. If I see another QuickTime event, I might have to kill myself or something. Basic storyboarding, how you fit a story into script, basically without actors, with voice actors and with animations instead. It's a pretty tricky deal, but I mean, if we can make it happen, then I guess we're well on our way. My favorite single player ever is Diablo 1. It's not really a single player per se, but gave me a good experience as a lonely player. Yes, you. Yeah. Yeah, so one of the hard times I don't think you are going to have a problem with was back in early 2000s where we didn't have a fancy FTP, where we had to sit in the office for 7 hours and upload things to the US just as they could test our build. Today we have good FTPs, we have good internet connections and all that stuff. But one of the toughest things that people deal with when making games is to decide, when am I going to release this? When am I going to go into beta? When am I going to start cutting stuff? Because when you start building a game, you have a scope, you have a big vision. You want to do this, 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 and this because everything ties into each other. My advice is to always build hooks on what you tie in so that you can always tie in something else on it. Let's say you have a character with an amazing story. You have to be able to cut half her or his story and then still be able to tell a good story because it's tough. I mean, making a game is not easy. You all know about it. I mean, you have to put in a lot of heart, a lot of ideas, and you have to ship it. I mean, you're not going to be successful unless you ship a game. You have to close, you know, and sometimes you have to cut things, and that's the hardest part. When you cut things that you love the most, that's really tough for me, especially as a producer now. When I look at the whole scope of the project, and I look at, oh my God, we have to cut this. That was my favorite feature. Then moving on to the next, it's like, oh, cut this too? Oh my God. So yeah, be decisive, make decisions. A good game developer and a good producer comes out of being able to make fast decisions, being able to tie in everything as well. Don't be afraid to cut things. It's the best thing. Just take a game you've built and just cut it into pieces and then rebuild it. I mean, if you have the time to, of course. I mean, it takes a lot of time, but that's the best practice you can get. My first exam was to cut BF2 in half, and I loved BF2, and I still had to cut everything. So, yeah, cutting stuff. That's toughest. Last question up there, yeah.
You showed us the history of Dice, and Dice has a very wide portfolio of games, pinball games, racing games, stuff like that. Do you feel that the success of Battlefield kind of constrains the games you can do?
Both yes and no. We also made Barbie games, by the way, let me add. And yeah, it's not, there's a reason it's not on there. And we Shrek games. I hate Shrek. It's terrible, I know. So yeah, we made those games as well. But I think both yes and no, to come back to your question. I mean, being able to do everything you want with the creative freedom that you can, an example from Mirror's Edge and the Rally Sport Challenge, working on different tiles, different physics, different mechanics, different everything really. Then going back to a Battlefield game is, you know, Battlefield is something special, but people need to be creative with what they do. I guess that's one of the big reasons as to why we don't want to keep Battlefield as it is from title to title. BC2 had certain amount of destruction. We had more destruction in BF3. We had more different levels. We had more different weapons. We had different types of customization systems in BF3. So everything evolves, and we're careful with evolving everything instead of just churning out the same game. But yes, to come back to your question, I think working on 10 Battlefield games can make you tired, and you're looking for new challenges, I guess. And that's, I'll be drinking beer later. Uncensored answers too, so it's going to be good. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel Matros from Dice. Thanks.